Hello, everyone. A very good evening and warm welcome to the webinar today. Today's webinar is the third of the lecture series on case report presentation. As you all are aware, that Optometry Council of India, in association with the American Academy of Optometry India chapter, presents a series of lectures on case report presentation. And in this regard, today we have a presentation by Dr. Rizwana on case report to publication. So Dr. Rizwana is not a newbie. I'm sure all of us are familiar with who she is. But for those of you who may not know much about Dr. Zamil Rizwana, here's a little brief about her. Dr. Zamil Rizwana currently heads the Rivoli Vision Academy at the Rivoli Vision United Arab Emirates to lead the strategic planning and functioning of the academy. Dr. Rizwana is currently serving the president for Optometric Association of Tamil Nanbargal, the legal association for optometry in Tamil Nadu, southern India. Through this role, she has been working towards the advocacy for optometry to be established as an independent eye care profession in the state as well as in the country. Dr. Rizwana is also the first clinical diplomate from India in the section of
Can you mute everybody except Rizwana and Anita?
Yes. Anita, I've asked you to unmute.
am I audible?
Yeah, Anita, continue.
Dr. Rizwana is the first clinical diplomate from India in the section of binocular vision perception and pediatric optometry of the American Academy of Optometry and is the inaugural and current president of the AAO India chapter. She also serves as a consultant for the International Agency for the Prevention of Blindness. Dr. Rizwana's expertise spans across clinical specialties of binocular vision, pediatric optometry, learning-related vision problems, cerebral visual impairment, amblyopia, and neurooptometry. She has authored the book titled Keep It Single and Simple, Binocular Vision Testing and Treatment Made Easy, along with her mentor, Professor Michelle Scheiman. Dr. Rizwana has many peer-reviewed publications in international as well as national journals to her credit. I can go on and on. I think the time is a limitation over here. So without much ado, I will request Dr. Rizwana to carry forward with her presentation. Over to you, Dr. Riz.
Thanks, Dr. Anita, for that introduction. I mean, you needn't have done such a big introduction. I'm just trying to share my PowerPoint. Let me know if you're all able to see my screen and hear me well. Okay, hey, everybody, good evening all. Thanks for joining in on a weekend. So today I think we're going to be talking about this journey of how to convert a case report to publication. But I think the last couple of weeks you must have heard both Manasi and Janet. I think they've spoken in detail about overall their experience with case report writing to achieving the fellowship status in the academy. But today I thought I will sort of digress a little bit and then take you guys through this journey that I underwent when it comes to my clinical I think it's now 15 years of my clinical journey and how one case report sort of changed my overall career. Okay, so that's what I'm here to share with all of you so that it possibly could give you some motivation that you can also start. So as you see here in this whole hierarchy of scientific evidence, case reports are actually at the bottommost of the pyramid, saying that's like the least evidence, whereas meta-analysis and systematic reviews are the strongest. And in this world of knowledge, I would say, in fact, overwhelming amount of information coming from different sources, sometimes we just lose track of which is scientific and which is not scientific. Of course, your gut feelings, your parental instincts, and websites like Natural News and all of that stuff is definitely not scientific evidence, and YouTube videos included. But rather, when you really look at peer-reviewed publications, I would say anything that undergoes a rigorous review and gets published definitely deserves a credit. So yes, this pyramid is more from the perspective of, okay, when it comes to looking at the results and applying it to my clinical practice, meta-analysis and systematic reviews include many studies put together. And so maybe when I look at it, I get a glimpse of a concise evidence from many studies. But the whole journey for everybody, especially a clinician, actually starts from this base of this pyramid, which is a case report. And a case report is nothing but an article that describes and interprets an individual case, often written in the form of a detailed story. So it's about your encounter with the patient and then how you get this story narrated. That is all about case report. So if you are a good storyteller, then you definitely can write a good case report. So, this is actually right after COVID hit. And then the whole world was like, COVID, and then SARS COVID, and then in CoV2, which is this virus all about. And if you really look at, I was just doing PubMed search right after, let's say, 3 months into COVID. And then I was like taken aback. 125,281 articles published on SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19, and about 6,959 on case reports. Okay, just in 3 months, 7,000 case reports on COVID, out of which 132 is from our world. And this is how the whole journey started, right? For the COVID. But I'll just take you back to maybe 3 decades or 4 decades. Like 1981, on the 5th of June, the Center for Disease Control reported 5 cases of pneumocystis carinii, commonly known as pneumonia, among 5 healthy young males. And that turned the history. They then found those males to be homosexuals, and then came the whole history of HIV into existence. Based on the case series on 5 healthy young males reported with pneumonia on the 5th of June, 1981. So everything basically stems from these observations made by clinicians in the clinics. Similarly, on the 27th December 2019, in China, a 49-year-old woman was diagnosed, was found to report with fever and cough with chest discomfort. And 4 days after the onset of her illness, the CT scan showed all these lesions, and then started the whole journey of novel coronavirus. So this is the first report that, as you see here, was published in the esteemed New England Journal of Medicine. Now, of course, who's going to undervalue this case report? Of course, the case series, but who's going to undervalue this? This is what then led to the overall journey, or rather exploration into the world of coronavirus. Now, let's look at what happened after this. So that's from China, right? And then if you go to United States, again, the first case of 2019 novel coronavirus, 35-year-old man after travel reporting to an urgent clinic in Washington. And when I was looking into, again, COVID-19 and eye-related infections or case reports, this was one of the case reports that struck me, which is monocular visual loss as the presenting symptom of COVID-19. Now, again, if you really look at these fundus images, you see here, you see that, the cherry red spot in those arrow marks, and the cherry red spot that is shown in the right eye of this particular patient. Now look at it, unless this clinician is like, keeps his eyes and ears open, and more than any of these has an open mind to look at, this of course is cherry red spot, but it is like a unilateral finding. And then he started investigating, and he ended up reporting that this is the first symptom of COVID-19. And of course, in every forum where I share about case reports, I definitely, we all of us have to talk about this man, Professor Jyotirmayi Biswas. Jyotirmayi Biswas was the first person that reported ocular lesions in AIDS. The first 2 cases in India was reported by this man. And of course, people like us were so, I should say, gratified to have our internships and training under him. So what Dr. Biswas did is, of course, the moment he started seeing these observations of ocular lesions, he immediately, this is exactly his slide that I had borrowed from him, he published in the Indian Journal of Ophthalmology, and he became the first. Now, to be a numero, and also to really, ensure that you get your pie in this whole world of scientific research and publication, speed really, really matters. Otherwise, we'll be sitting in forums where people are talking and you'll be like, yeah, I also see that. Yeah, I also observed that. I have been observing it for almost 10 years. And that is how I see many of the clinician colleagues actually responding when what we call as unique findings are being reported in scientific forums. This story of penicillin has always sort of been quite inspiring to me, as you see here. I'll speak about Professor Alexander Fleming. But the word research, I mean, because we're all clinician researchers, the word research comes from the French word recherche, which means to travel through or survey. So it's all about traveling or journeying through the whole story of a patient and how you are able to narrate that journey. So, let's go back to like the time immediately after World War II, when Edwin Land's landmark invention was this whole Polaroid camera. So we must have seen in movies, you click, and then immediately you get the picture printed from the Polaroid camera. And Edwin Land is one of Steve Jobs' biggest heroes. So while on vacation, what happened was Edwin Land's 3-year-old daughter, when he took the photo, she insisted that I need to see this photo immediately, okay, of the photo that was taken by Edwin. And he was like perplexed, and she didn't stop. She kept on crying. And then he went on to, okay, maybe is this possible? And he ended up being the inventor of the Polaroid camera. And then comes the story of Alexander Fleming, where this whole curious contaminated mold led to the discovery of life-saving medicine, or what we call as the miracle medicine. So what Dr. Fleming was doing is basically 1928, he was researching this whole flu that was shaking up the world, because those times, even for minor infections, people were dying left, right, and center. So what Fleming had done is, of course, Fleming was known as the careless lab technician. Okay, he is called as the careless lab technician. So he had left this petri dish after where he was, he had inoculated Staphylococcus aureus. So what he done after he done all of those, he left it. He'd gone for a vacation. When he came back, he saw like a mold. This is a mold. He saw a mold on this Staphylococcus, and this mold was very peculiar. It had grown oversized, and he was like, I mean, there is this dish where the staph is already there, the staph bacteria is there, but then why is this mold like growing on top? And he saw some of the discontinuities in the staph bacteria, which means this mold was acting against that bacteria. And then later the whole story of extracting this mold, and he found the miracle medicine penicillin. Of course, then 20 years later, it took for the entire world to get the penicillin out, but that was a political story. But if you really look at this, Fleming though he had been a careless lab technician, he was a very curious researcher. In 1922, like 6 years back, he was researching, and then same thing, bacteria, petri dish, all of us who've done microbiology lab, if you just go back, then you know these petri dishes, where the tear sample, like his tear fell onto the petri dish, and then later he saw that the bacterial growth was arrested. And actually, he was one among those early researchers who also found these lysozymal enzymes in the tears that were antibacterial that had antibacterial properties. So he had always been this curious. So 6 years later, he was just recalling this incident. Okay, so maybe this mold has something, and I should now, start investigating this. That then led to the discovery of penicillin that saved countless lives and also got him a Nobel Prize in 1945. So he actually, while he was receiving the award, he says that, when I woke up, one sometimes finds what one is not looking for. Be it people, place, experiences, things like this. Sometimes when you're not really looking for something, boom, something comes up. That's how penicillin discovery happened for Alexander Fleming. So he quotes it like this beautifully. When I woke up just after dawn on September 28, 1928, I certainly didn't plan to revolutionize all medicine by discovering the world's first antibiotic or bacteria killer, but I suppose that was exactly what I did. Of course, I'm not telling here that, we are all going to be, we should all be working towards winning the Nobel Prize, but what's really important is to have the open-mindedness and keen observation. Especially, I see a lot of students out there in the audience who's joined with us. I see a lot of early career researchers. just remember this one trait that ties all of these lucky strikers together. Okay, as this going back to the Indian philosophy or the whole world of Eastern philosophy, Bodhidharma says that the mind is the root from which all things grow. And if you can understand the mind, then everything else is included. So just keep watching your own inquisitive thoughts and don't just sort of discard it whenever you're examining your patients. The seeds of great discoveries are constantly floating around us, but they only take root in minds well prepared to receive them. So my intention today, I mean, if I'm able to shake a few of your minds saying, you know what I'm observing in my clinic, the questions that I'm asking, they are basically meaningful, because many of you disregard those questions because you do not have faith in your own self. You are like, oh, maybe this is a stupid question. I may not even discuss it with my mentor or a supervisor. Now, this is a beautiful story that you will never forget, which I have named it as the story of scissoring reflex. And I will tell you, I'll tell you about the publication, but this goes back to 1913, early 1900s, where an 18-year-old gentleman walks into an optometry clinic. And what this gentleman tells the doctor, the optometry doctor, is that, I have to frequently change my glasses. So the doctor takes a retinoscope and sees a very peculiar reflex, as you see here. Okay, this is all the doctor's handwritten, hand-drawn images. And then this is, of course, the age-old, I think, keratometer, and where he sees doubling of, again, he hand drew this, man. I mean, because those days we didn't have these super imaging techniques, right? So he hand drew this. And this is what he wrote. He said that the degree of astigmatism that I found on my keratometer, which he called as the ophthalmometer, did not correspond with what I saw in the trial lenses. So what he did afterwards is what that matters the most, what many of us actually do not do. Okay, and then we end up missing the boat, and also we then end up regretting later. He documented everything, he compiled, and he published, and which is now, of course, the standard. It's published in the Trans-American Ophthalmology Society journal in 1913, keratoconus, with reports of cases by the famous ophthalmologist Weeks. Okay, and look at this, February 22, 1895. The first visit of the patient. Okay, the way he's written, the patient has grown rapidly, now 6 feet 2 inches tall, is slim but apparently in good health. Like, look at the way people write case reports. Then every visit, he documents the keratometer, he documents the axis, he documents the vision, and he starts to see a trend from 1895 to 1912. That these axis has constantly been changing. The cylindrical powers are increasing. Vision is sort of dropping and fluctuating. And all of a sudden, when he saw the scissoring reflex, he named it as keratoconus, and he brought this out to the world. And now we all know what keratoconus is all about. So really, when you look back into the history, can clinicians become researchers? 100%. What does the story of penicillin tell us? What does the story of keratoconus convey to us? In your clinical setup, research is possible. You don't need $1 million equipment or $1 million fund actually to even become a researcher. And I need to convince some of the clinicians that joined with us today. I see some eminent people also on the audience. It is very important for all of us as practitioners to actually do research. It is our moral responsibility. Be it the unique presentation that we see, we get an opportunity to share with others, not just that uniqueness, but actually our clinical knowledge. And of course, it helps us to elevate ourselves to a higher degree, be it the fellowship in the American Academy, or that then becoming a publication and then helping you to take your career to the next level. And it helps to develop evidence for your practice. And it's definitely the most rewarding experience. I mean, people who published will know what it is to see your work on a platform, on a peer-reviewed platform. And of course, I can never, speak about case report without mentioning about Raji, because Raji is known. I mean, Dr. Raji, of course, super senior to me, but I always love to call her Raji. Ocular surface prosthesis for keratoglobus and Cherin's marginal degeneration, a clinical case, and she loves writing case reports. Being an FAO, I mean, she keeps writing reports and reports. I'm going to just show you a simple video. Of course, I just have only 5 more minutes before I end my talk. But But I request all of you to just observe this video. It's the video of a child where the researcher asks the child to do something. Okay, now just observe it, and in the chat box, please share your observations. Okay. Anita, can you hear me basically? Hear the video?
I can hear you, Dr. Rizwana, but I don't think the audio of the video.
Audio of the video is clear. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share again, because it's just one simple trick that we need to do when we share screen, when I should say share sound. And now it should be, you are seeing my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now.
And then she showed them an anomaly. And what you'll see is that this little boy will go through 5 hypotheses. And what she did was show children that yellow ones made it go and red ones didn't. And then she showed them an anomaly. And what you'll see is that this little boy will go through 5 hypotheses in the space of 2 minutes.
So basically, the boy is given a task of keeping these blocks on top of these light boxes. Only if the blocks are kept in a certain order, it will be lit. Okay. Now he's just told that do it in whatever way that you want, but all we need is the light coming up. Okay. So just look at what he does. Okay. He does the same thing. No light.
Okay, so his first hypothesis has just been falsified.
First hypothesis is falsified. He tries the other way.
This one's lighting up and this one's not.
Okay, he's got his experimental notebook out.
Didn't work out.
It's making this light up.
Every scientist will recognize that expression of despair, right?
Oh, it's because this to be like this.
For me, someone said video is not visible. I hope for everybody.
Okay, hypothesis 2.
That's why.
Because I guess it's visible.
Yeah. Okay. So now just look at all the stuff that he does. For
Oh,
him,
because the light goes only to here, not here.
so finally he says, no, this box is not working.
The
Okay.
bottom of this box has electricity in here, but this doesn't have electricity.
This box has electricity, but this
Okay,
one
that's the
doesn't.
4th hypothesis.
It's lighting up. So we need to put 4. So we need to put 4 on this one to make it light up and 2 on this one to make it light up.
Okay, there's the 5th hypothesis.
So in a span of like 5 minutes, he comes with 5 hypotheses, and finally he figures out, saying in one box it needs 2 blocks to light up, and in the other box you need 4 boxes to light up. This is what all of us are born with. We're born like as curious cats or the curious George, being inquisitive, eager to learn, and we have this originality in us. And this is what we've been doing as kids. We've been exploring the world, exploring the soil, exploring the earth. We were just exploring the whole house. But rather than afterwards, I think, things happen where we stop questioning, we stop exploring, and then the mind also stops being inquisitive. But if the child still is alive within us, all you need to do is just say, come on, wake up and start being inquisitive again. Okay. So now comes to this final journey of mine. This is the case report that I wrote to the American Academy, which is titled Idiopathic Acute Adult Onset Concomitant Esotropia and Accommodative Spasm, Clinical Presentation and Management. This was the title I gave when I wrote it as a fellowship case report. So what actually made me write this case report? Okay, this then later became a publication in the Optometry and Vision Science Journal. Actually, my first publication in the whole research career was a clinical case, apparently. So being inspired by my mentors, okay, and especially like the way we are taught, okay, deal with people like Dr. KK and Dr. Meenakshi and Dr. Biswas and all of them, we were like very meticulous in documenting. So I was following up this patient almost for a year, and I was just seeing that this guy was not, he had a presentation of accommodative spasm in both the eyes, and he also had this esotropia along with the spasm. Okay, so I will not get into the clinical presentation of this case. So we started him with 1% atropine eye ointment. Then he recovered. Then we saw him 2 months from baseline. It recurred. Then we again saw him 3-4 months from baseline. We saw that it was recurring, and then we realized we need to change the protocol. We changed the protocol, and at 1 year we found him to be stable. Then I looked into the whole the research database. There was nothing like these where recurrent spasms were being reported. So what I said, okay, maybe this is a good thing. I will write and I will send it to the American Academy's fellowship process. So when I sent this up, you know, this is how it came back to me. Look at this date, 4th June 2013. I was like a really budding clinician, okay? But still all I did is just that bold step, one bold step, and I just wrote it. And finally it came like accepted without revision. I'm like, seriously, the case is reported. So what they really look for is spelling, grammar, data collection, diagnosis, and discussion. And looking at the whole thing, okay, where it gets accepted without revision by 2 reviewers, and you get 94 on 100. That's like, you know, it just takes you back to the your good old school days, right? You're like super excited. Okay, so then there's something in the case record because somebody sees it very valuable. Then what I did, of course, it took me to the next journey where the reviews came back and they said, you know, you achieved your 50 points, and now you are eligible to take the fellowship exam. And I took the fellowship exam and I became a fellow. But after which, when I came back home, I was discussing with Dr. KK, one of the co-author of this paper. And of course, you see Dr. T.S. Surendran, the leading pediatric ophthalmologist in the country, and Dr. Sumita Agarkar, all of them. So what I did is I just discussed with them, why don't we write this as a report now? And then we wrote it. And of course, then it came back not as good as we were expecting it to come back, because I was really having all my expectations on this case. But they said, you know, significant English issues are there. You need to correct the whole English, and please do it. But apart from that, a significant revision is recommended, and we can't assure publication until you correct these revisions. Then it came back with lots and lots of comments, like almost like 14 pages, as you see here. I was like totally shattered. I said, okay, I think this is the end of the journey and maybe I should just stop. But I didn't do. I continued, and then it went to publication. That's one part of the story. But what really pushed me after seeing that such heart-shattering review to be able to push it to publication is the few cents that I want to convey to you. So yes, you start being very inquisitive. You write something, somebody appreciates, somebody is not very appreciative, then immediately you should never lose heart, because inquisitiveness is a part of you. But discipline, I'm like, you know, I always say like, being disciplined really, really helps you. And when it comes to discipline at a very clinical level, clinician researcher level, it's all about documentation. So to me, I was like, the whole team, we were so meticulous in documenting. But what actually stood up in this particular success story is my interaction with the mentors. I mean, seek help, ask for help when you need help. Why do you think that you have to just battle it out all on your own? And so I made some bold moves. And the final part of the thing is, if you didn't write a document, it didn't happen. If I had not written it, of course, that one case report didn't change the world, but it changed my world. It changed my career. But if I had not written, now every time I see accommodative spasm coming up, I will be telling, you know what, I had this report. I had this report. I had this report. So this interaction with mentors. So what I did basically is, if you all know about Dr. Robert Rutstein, he was one of the first optometrists to publish case reports on accommodative spasm. I figured out his email ID with what, so October 8, 2013, you see here, I'm like, you know, which I just picked up my own courage and I wrote to him saying, you know, currently he's like 90 years, okay, 85 years actually. So we go back a decade, and he was like a senior most professor about to retire. But still I wrote to him saying, you know, Dr. Stein, I'm so very impressed with your work and I think I need your help. And this whole thing which I wrote, and finally it came back with this. And you know what he did? He then looked at the manuscript. He attached all the comments, including English revisions, because the journal was expecting a native English speaker to review the document. And then he gave very, very important comments. And he said, you include this, and the whole case report will go to the next level. And this is how he sent back the document. Again, another heart shattering. But I think this is how things get refined and refined and refined, like how this whole becomes diamond. The whole process of life, I think, in becoming a very fine clinician is to sort of putting you through, allowing yourself to go through all of these rigors, okay? And now you see, as on date, it's 31 citations. Of course, not like great, but as a budding clinician, to me, 31 people, and actually, if you see the 31, most of them are neuro-ophthalmologists. That's referring to this paper, and everybody now refers to this paper as one of the key paper in the management of accommodative spasm. And in every conference, they ask me questions. So definitely, the journey is gratifying. Okay, so see, when Newton discovered gravity, when the apple fell on his head, people will make comments saying physics would have been much easier if the tree instead of apple had fallen on the Newton's head. I think sometimes all it needs is to just have a shift in perspective, and curiosity is a key part of what it means to be human. Stay curious, ask questions, and of course, you know, just look at it. All these people asked questions last year, and the chapter ended up having 11 more fellows added to the kitty. And really this year we see another 10 more appearing. And so we are sure that the whole AAO India chapter is gonna be becoming, is already becoming very strong. And keep following us up on Facebook, and start your journey. I think this is the time. So that's it, Anita.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rizwana. It's always a pleasure listening to you. And thanks for sharing your journey from becoming a researcher, from a clinician to a researcher, basically. And congratulations on that publication of yours, which has garnered a lot of interest amongst clinicians as well as academicians. Even I have referred to that paper a couple of times, so it's fantastic. And also sharing the arduous, journey that you have undertaken. I can totally relate to the red marks that you have received. It's pretty frustrating initially, but then for me at this stage, I think I need to have loads of patience, okay, to be accepting of that and continue with the journey. So inquisitiveness definitely required. At the same time, you need to be patient as well, because I see there's lots of restlessness amongst the youngsters, especially, you know, they want, and they get so irritated and frustrated the minute they see that there's a rejection in their inbox, and then that's the end of the journey. They call it off. In fact, I had also gone through this when I first applied and my paper got rejected. I was so frustrated. And the journey doesn't end there, it begins from there. I think failure is the stepping stone to success, as they all say. So thank you very much. It was a very inspiring talk, I should say. And if there are any questions pertaining to this talk or anything in general that the audience would like to know regarding their journey towards the fellowship from the American Academy of Optometry, I think Dr. Rizwana is more than happy to take up these questions. Or you could type it out in the chat box if you're unable to unmute yourself and ask her directly.
Anita, just a comment, Lakshmi here.
Yeah.
I think Rizwana, you can maybe talk a little bit about selection of the case as well. Like, you know, some people might just select something which is already there as evidence already in the literature, and they might get disheartened if it gets rejected. So I think selection of the case and enough of data in terms of at least couple of follow-ups and what you have kind of the end point, how did you resolve the entire case. That is very important when you submit either for publication or for the academy, either way. So Rizwana.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, ma'am. Basically, I would not say that you will have to have something really 100% unique to be able to publish. I think what I will tell you is, if you are convinced that you have found something unique in your case. For example, I'm not the first person to report accommodative father, but I found something unique in that case. So if there is something unique, then document it meticulously and write it down. First, write it down. Do not even think about getting it published, but write it down in a way, in the format where like case reports have to be written. Definitely that will help you, first of all, to get into that whole habit of writing, because what I'm seeing in this whole world of I don't know, shortcuts and typing and all of it, some of us have even forgotten this whole art of writing, writing coherently or writing cogently, that what's required for a researcher. So put your thoughts down and build a story. So start telling stories when you just interact with your colleagues. Narrate the whole presentation as a story. Again, whenever we see new case reports coming now, it's not like first of its kind. It's again the whole way the story is narrated. So to me, when it comes to case report, it is you getting convinced, saying, you know what, this is going to be a valuable information to the clinician out there, and I'm going to write it up. I'm going to bring the uniqueness of the case. But what can never be disregarded or can be taken for granted is the documentation of the findings, especially. And currently in this world of medical ethics, where regulations, the informed consent about everything that you do, the imaging and all of it, which has to be really filed, because the HIPAA regulations are becoming more and more important, especially when we are sending case reports to journals being reviewed by American researchers. So I think that is what I would say. But start from wherever you are with whatever you have, and that's the only thing that can help you just get going. It's not that you have to find the perfect moment, like the perfect case. No.
Yeah. So maybe just to give an example, suppose you have a case of, let's say, scleral lenses with keratoconus. Because I'm a contact lens person, I can relate to it. I'm just giving an example. So that is not something unique. But let's say you fit a scleral lens in a keratoconus post graft, and let's say it's a protruded graft or something unique, right? And then you fit the scleral lens on that patient, and you feel that is successful or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
So these two, I'm just saying the difference between something that's not unique to compare to something that is that has some kind of meat in it, so that you can send it. That's all.
And also, if you see the whole thing as a teamwork, because many of us think that it's me who has to put all the work down. Like, so the optometry collaboration is super important, especially when you start your case report journey. So to me, I think I was quite successful in building that initial. See, of course, to get the credibility is difficult, but definitely there are mentors out there. See, they are very busy. And then when you say, I will write it down and all you need to do is review it for me, they're more than happy to help, because everybody is getting benefited. A publication is a publication for you and for them. And so it's important that you get them on board and have that mentoring and guidance in terms of writing, as well as because they bring a lot of value in terms of, the presentation, the way that you write it and document and all of it. So have a team. Do not just look at it as a one man army, but just look at it as like, I'm going to have my team and I will write this. And that will also be, that's a very good strategy, actually, I would say.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. And one more point that you are driving in here is record keeping. So if we as clinicians follow best practice standards and document all the cases, I think half the hurdle has been crossed, or half the journey has been done, I would say. Meticulously, documenting everything is the most important aspect. It could be a retrospective thing also, which can be presented as a case, right? So follow-ups are essential. So that brings me to the point that the Optometry Council of website has the best practice standards document put up. So for all of those who are keen to know what are the best practice standards, how do we go about, what are the aspects pertaining to a comprehensive eye examination that can be done by an optometrist, please do refer to this document and make use of it. I would suggest that you go visit the Optometry Council of India website, which is www.optometrycouncilofindia.org, and benefit out of it. So are there any questions?
I think everybody is sort of like, now thinking what to now go back and write, I guess. And I've also put the care guidelines, basically the link, because that will also help you to really know what are the aspects of a case report base. Because now it's mandatory that we follow the care statement while we write the case report. But everybody can become a fellow, because I think I should say this. Many people keep asking this question. I'm just I'm into my first year of clinical practice. Can I become a fellow? 100% you can become a fellow. So, all you need to do is just start the journey. And some people ask other way. I'm like 25 years now into practice. Can I become a fellow? Yes, you can become a fellow, because there are many categories. And I think next we should bring in those leadership category people, including Lakshmi ma'am, sharing about, how as leaders in the industry, you can become a fellow. I think that will also give a lot of motivation to senior clinicians out there. I think, but everybody.
Mine was on education.
Right. So you should share, you and Nilesh should share your experience on how, like, when you are like already an eminent personality in the field, how you can get into this journey and what's really required.
Yeah, I'm not that eminent. I was not even eminent at that time when I did my fellow. So just experiences in education, basically, through those.
That matters, right? Thanks, Salal. Of course, yes. My job is to just give you a little motivation. Today, that's my intention for today. Basically, I just wanted to motivate all of you out there. Just saying, it's important that it's easy. I see Zalak there, because Zalak also has this very early. I mean, she's an early career researcher, but published quite a bit. And I'm seriously impressed when some of us with limited resources are able to do what. So we should get all these people on board, these young researchers, to also inspire, I think, everybody out there. I think we are done. We can call it a day so that people can go and have a weekend.
I guess so. Thank you so much, Dr. Rizwana, for sharing your experiences and taking us through this wonderful journey of yours, and kind of inspiring and motivating all of us, whether it is young or old. We are totally motivated at the moment. So let us kickstart our journey towards becoming a researcher, I would say. So thank you all for joining us this evening, and please do await for the next announcement of the case report from the OCI AAO India chapter case report series. We'll be talking to you all next month with another interesting case report from the fellow of the AAO. So thank you so much, Dr. Rizwana. And
Anita, before we close, can we just have a hands up of anybody who's coming to the academy from this group?
I'm at San Diego this year. I'm coming. I don't see many people actually coming in. FB is there. FB is coming.
FB is coming.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for all your love. Thank you. It's so good. It's so good to see all of you.
Anybody else? Anybody coming to the academy? Oh, Farooq is coming. Okay. Anybody else? Because we usually, Rizwana, Nilesh, they all have the enthusiasm of getting all this Indian gang together, and then we do some crazy things also.
Let's do a Indian gang meet.
Yeah.
And FB is coming. FB is there, though FB is, we still consider
he's still Indian. He's not non-Indian.
Don't disown him. Yeah, that's why. See there.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Just wanted to know from this group if anybody was traveling for the fellowship or anything like that. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Riz. Great presentation, as you should.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm always in India. Be India. Be India by India. Bye.
Thank you.